Analyzing the NCEES model law reveals the specific legal grounds for board intervention. For those preparing for the FE exam, these statutes dictate how and why disciplinary action is taken against violators. A central challenge in professional ethics is distinguishing between the rules governing those recognized by the profession and those operating outside of it. Section 150.10 provides the regulatory framework that strictly governs individuals who already hold an engineering license or an intern certification. Section 150.30 functions as a separate regulatory framework, governing individuals who exist entirely outside the licensing system. This division creates a matrix of responsibility. The state board holds authority over both groups, but uses distinct legal mechanisms. This split exists because the board's relationship with a licensed professional differs fundamentally from its relationship with the general public. Classifying a situation into one of these two jurisdictional buckets clarifies which specific set of rules and which specific penalties the board can actually apply. Individuals in Section 150.10 hold a license, allowing the board to enact severe sanctions, including suspension or revocation. The 14 grounds for discipline organize into 3 categories. The first is fraud and legal issues, involving deceit or foreign discipline. It also includes a strict felony clause. Pleading guilty to any felony triggers board discipline, regardless of whether the crime occurred during engineering practice. The second category involves competence and the standard of care. This covers general negligence, practicing outside one's area of competence, and habitual intoxication. The final category is professional conduct. This includes the prohibition of plan stamping, which is affixing a seal to documents not prepared by the licensee or under their direct responsible charge. Failing to provide information requested by the board during an investigation also falls under this category of professional conduct. Collectively, these violations represent a failure to uphold the technical trust and legal standard of care that the state expects from a licensed professional. Turning to Section 150.3, we find rules governing the unlicensed public. The most direct violation is unauthorized practice, engaging in engineering work without a license. There are also strict prohibitions against using protected titles, like professional engineer, in a business name. This extends to advertising. Any description implying a person is a licensed professional when they are not is grounds for board action. Other offenses involve identity theft and the impersonation of a licensee. This includes an unlicensed person attempting to use a licensee's seal, or practicing with an expired, suspended, or non-existent license. Because they lack a license, the board's enforcement power is restricted. Instead of revocation, the board is empowered to levy fines and recover costs. Section 150.30 functions as a defensive perimeter, preventing individuals from bypassing the state's licensure requirements. While the grounds for discipline differ, the board uses a singular framework to calculate financial penalties for both groups. When assessing a fine, the board applies the same 6-factor heuristic, regardless of whether the violator is an insider or outsider. First, it applies a compounding rule. Each day a violation continues is a separate offense. The board evaluates if the fine is a substantial economic deterrent and considers the circumstances leading to the violation. Factors 3 and 4 address the severity of the violation, specifically public risk, and economic benefits gained. This calculation ensures that a violator cannot profit from their actions. The fine is intended to offset any financial gain achieved by ignoring the law. Finally, the board considers the interest of the public and ensures the fine is consistent with past penalties for similar offenses. This shared framework ensures that fines are calculated objectively, based on risk and economics across all jurisdictions. This summary matrix provides a structure for navigating regulatory questions. For licensees under Section 150.10, the focus is on competence and the standard of care. Because they are part of the system, their unique penalty is the loss of the license itself. For unlicensed individuals under Section 150.3, the focus is on fraud and impersonation. Their penalties are limited to financial recovery. In both cases, the 6-factor fine calculation remains the same. Analyzing a scenario through this lens requires identifying the actor's licensure status to determine which set of rules applies. An unlicensed person cannot be cited for plan stamping under 150.10, just as a licensed engineer is not cited for unauthorized practice under 150.30. Understanding these exact legal boundaries provides a precise framework for navigating the regulatory requirements of the profession.
Welcome! Today we're going to study ethics and professional practice. We will focus on two parts of the model law, Section 150.10 and Section 150.30. We will go slowly, explain the ideas clearly, and solve some scenarios along the way. First, Section 150.10. This section explains the grounds for disciplinary action for licensees and interns. Think of this as the board's list of reasons why it can suspend, revoke, or fine a licensed professional or an intern. Let's list the major grounds. We'll group them so they are easier to remember. First, dishonesty and fraud. Second, incompetence or misconduct. Third, criminal convictions related to honesty or engineering practice. Next, failing to comply with laws or board rules and discipline by another jurisdiction. The board can also act if the licensee refuses to provide information during a complaint investigation. Next, false statements, helping others break the rules and violating board orders or practicing with an inactive or restricted license. Finally, improper use of a professional seal, unethical or unprofessional conduct, false testimony, habitual intoxication, and practicing outside one's area of competence. Section 150.10 also allows the board to issue fines. The fine amount can consider factors like deterrence, severity, risk to the public, and economic benefit. Now, Section 150.30. This section covers disciplinary action for unlicensed individuals. In other words, people who are not licensed but act like they are. The main violations include practicing without a license, using restricted titles like professional engineer, misleading advertising, using someone else's license or seal, fraud in getting a license, impersonation, or using an expired or revoked license. Just like the earlier section, fines are possible. The board can assess amounts based on severity, public risk, economic benefit, and consistency with prior cases. Let's solve a sample scenario. Scenario 1. A licensed engineer seals structural drawings that were not prepared under their responsible charge. What section applies, and what is the violation? This is Section 150.10. It violates the rule about sealing or signing work not prepared under the licensee's responsible charge. It may also count as unethical conduct because it risks public safety. Scenario 2. A person without a license advertises engineering services using the title professional engineer. What section applies? This falls under Section 150.30. The person is unlicensed and using a restricted title, so the board can issue fines and discipline. Now it's your turn. Scenario 3. A licensed surveyor continues to practice while the license is inactive and also ignores a board request for information about a complaint. Which violations apply? Take a moment to think. Here is the answer. This is Section 150.10. Two violations apply: practicing while inactive and failing to provide information requested by the board during a complaint. Let's recap the key idea. Section 150.10 governs licensees and interns. Section 150.30 governs unlicensed individuals. Both focus on protecting the public by enforcing honesty, competence, and proper licensing.